In today's show, the Blazers get thumped by the Milwaukee Bucks and find out just how far they are away from contention. Yeah, the game sucked. Let's talk about trades. Welcome to Locked On Blazers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Trailblazers, your daily Portland Trailblazers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What up, world? It's your past first point guard and Trailblazers reporter, Mike Richmond. Listen to another episode of Locked On Blazers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, available wherever you get podcasts and also on YouTube. Thanks for making this show your first listen. It's available every single weekday, Monday through Friday, free on all platforms. So make it your first listen. Tell your friends to do the same. As Locked On Blazers, your team every day. In today's show, we will talk about the Blazers getting blown out by the Bucks, but briefly, because there's more fun things to talk about than a home beat down against a championship contender, and the Blazers certainly got beat down on Monday evening. I want to talk about Jarred Vanderbilt, future Blazer Jarred Vanderbilt. We're going to talk about him in the second segment, and then we'll close the show talking a little about the fallout of the Kyrie Irving trade and the impact it could have on the Blazers in the near and the medium term. The medium term could be meaningful for Portland following Kyrie Irving's exit from the Brooklyn Nets. But first, let's unfortunately do what we do. Just kidding. It's still fun even when they lose. We have fun on the podcast. We're going to have fun today. The Blazers got walloped, though. They lose 127-108. This game was not particularly competitive in the second half. Portland was down 30-22 at the break, or 30-22 after one, and 58-48 at the break. I actually thought Portland played well in the first half. They couldn't hang. Like, Milwaukee was just better than them, and it was obvious they were better than them, and Portland wasn't shooting well. They weren't generating good, easy looks, and Milwaukee was just way too big for them to handle. But I didn't think they played poorly in the first half. They were right there. They were sort of right there despite it all in this game, and then the third quarter happened, and they were no longer in the game. Bucks outscore the Blazers 37-23 in the third quarter, and that's your ball game. They go into the fourth up 95-71, and they cruise. Both teams played their starters way too long. I have no idea what Mike Budenholzer was doing. He left his starters in there for forever. Even at the end of the game, he plays rotation guys who are going to play in the playoffs. Jevon Carter, Wes Matthews on the court at the end of a blowout game. Who knows? Whatever. Nitpicking. That's your fast recap in the West. Bucks win 127-108. Damian Lillard, 28 points to go with 4 boards and 5 assists. Anthony Simons had 21 and 5 dimes. Jeremy Grant continues to struggle. 13 points on 4 of 13 shooting, 1 of 7 from 3. Got this from the broadcast. Shout out to Lamar Hurd, who said that it was 4th straight game under 20 points, the longest stretch of Jeremy Grant's Blazers tenure without cracking the 20-point mark. They need him. They're not going to be a particularly good team if he doesn't score. Their offense really isn't their problem. It's the other side of the ball that's a bigger issue, but their sort of long-term prospects, Jeremy Grant needs to score. It's 4 games. It's not a big deal, but they need him to score. No Drew Eubanks in this, or no Yusuf Nurkic in this one, so Drew Eubanks played, and that ended up being, quite frankly, a big deal. He finished with 10 points, 4 boards, and 5 assists. I thought Drew was fine. He's just way too small. On the other side of the court, speaking of way too small, Brook Lopez, 27 points, 9 rebounds on 9 of 12 shooting. Giannis Antetokounmpo, 24 points on 9 of 14 shooting. Those two dudes combined for a cool 51 on 18 of 26 shooting to go with 22 rebounds. The Blazers as a team had 28 boards. They just weren't big enough. They weren't big enough. Drew Holiday finished with 20, Pat Connaughton 11, Chris Middleton 13 off the bench. The aforementioned Jevon Carter, who played at the end of the game for no reason. Shout out to Mike Budenholzer, also had 11, 5 boards and 3 assists off the bench. I don't think there's a lot to get into in this game, quite frankly. Let's get into the basics. Milwaukee is better than Portland, and tonight was a reminder of the distance the Blazers are from a championship level team. The green folks who visited the Moda Center tonight, the gentleman clad in green, that's a team that can win a title. Chris Middleton's still coming off the bench, and they're being, I guess, relatively careful with his minutes. Again, he was on the court at the end of a game for no reason, a blowout, but they're getting ready to win games in April and May and hopefully get to June. Like, they're championship level good. They are absolutely one of the handful of teams in the league that can win a championship. And the Blazers are I don't know, way the hell away from that. Not particularly close to that level. Some of it was just bad shooting. Like the Blazers were 9 of 36 from 3, and I thought they missed some good looks. And some of it is just the Bucks make it so hard to get to the rim. They make it so hard to consistently generate good, easy looks that the Blazers were, they weren't getting enough easy looks that weren't three-pointers. And they weren't getting easy buckets at the rim. They weren't running that much. In fact, I think they probably should have tried to run more in this game. And Milwaukee just said, we're going to pick you apart if you switch. And the Blazers switched pretty freely in this game, probably more freely than maybe they should have. But like the switching wasn't the problem. The Bucks certainly attacked that a bunch. The problem was that they're just too small. Like, what are you going to do? If Trent Watford is your backup center against this team, you're going to lose. It was a night they absolutely missed Yusuf Nurkic. It is what it is. They missed him. They said, and I'll agree with another thing I said on the broadcast tonight, this is a game they probably missed a little bit of Justice Winslow, because if you're going to go small, the flavor of small better be strong as heck, like Winslow is, and not some other options. Like this team was too small when they built it. This team remains too small now. This week is about getting less small. That's, for me, this was a reminder of let's say you are a big believer in what the front office is selling. If you are, buy into exactly the message they gave you. 1, this team was unfinished, and 2, they kind of knew this team was flawed. Okay, we're heading into the trade deadline this week. Unfinished means you got it. And the other thing they said, I missed the whole point I was trying to make, is that it would take, they thought it would take a little bit, maybe 2 cycles, a trade deadline and a free agency summer off season, to get them to where they want to be. Step 1 is this week, the trade deadline, because it's really hard to build a champion in the league. I'm not going to be like, Joe Cronin has to do it by October. Like, it's so hard. It's so hard. Less than half the league, 14 teams have won an NBA title in the last 40 years. It's just, there's not a lot of parity in the NBA. It happens in cycles, and teams dominate for cycles. But the Blazers have to get better if they're going to get closer, and they're serious about getting closer. They have to get better. They have to. If they've said they want to try and get better and build with Dame and push towards a championship, it's this week to do it. And Milwaukee was a real up close and personal, under the microscope. Like, yeah, them. That's what it looks like up close. Like, you can see the pores on those dudes' faces. Those are championship level pores. The Blazers are a ways away. They're a ways away. So how do they get there? Step 1. Acquire Utah Jazz big man Jarred Vanderbilt. I'm kidding, but it does really seem like Jarred Vanderbilt's going to be wearing pinwheels by Friday afternoon. So let's talk about future Trailblazer Jarred Vanderbilt in the second segment. Before we do that, I want to tell you about Built Bar. Y'all know Built Bar because I've been telling you about it for 3 years. I've also been eating them for 3 years. Like, I'll push a product on here. I know the job. But Built Bar is for real something that I enjoy in my home with regularity. I've been eating them for close to 3 years. I like them because they have 17 grams of protein, on average just 130 calories, less than 5 grams of sugar, on average 4 grams of sugar, and just 4 net carbs. Personal favorites, I love peanut butter brownie, and I love cookies and cream. But right now they got churro out there. They got brownie batter out there. You can still get double chocolate, raspberry. You can get the chocolate caramel action, whatever you're looking for. Built.com, and use the promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off. But now, also available at brick and mortar stores. Walmart and Sam's Club carry Built Bars. So if you do not want to order them online, you want to just go out to your local Walmart or Sam's Club, check them out, buy a 4-pack, see what you like, then go back and buy a 13-pack box. Find out if I've been telling you the truth all these years about Built Bar, or visit Built.com. All right. Let's talk trades. Future Trailblazer Jarred Vanderbilt. First, actually, let's just run through I screwed something up probably about this, and I want to tell you because one of the things that I take pride in this podcast is when I get stuff wrong, I love to smile and laugh about how wrong I was. Tony Jones of The Athletic reports that one Western Conference team has an offer on the table to the Utah Jazz in exchange for big man Jarred Vanderbilt for multiple second-round picks. Well, If you'll recall, Shams Charania of The Athletic reported that the Blazers are a strong suitor for Jarred Vanderbilt. The Blazers do not have first-round picks to trade. What they do have is multiple second-round picks in future drafts, none in this draft, but future drafts, a couple in 2024, a couple in 2026, that they could trade in the future. What Western Conference team with multiple second-rounders to trade could be interested in Jarred Vanderbilt? That certainly sounds like your Portland Trailblazers. In that same story, Tony Jones is the Jazz beat writer for The Athletic. Tony is plugged in. He knows he is as good as it gets. Beat writers come in a bunch of flavors. Tony is really, really plugged into what the Jazz are thinking. He has been that way for years. Tony also suggested that there's other teams that are interested and that Vanderbilt, the Jazz will figure out what Vanderbilt's market is, because they're really starting to listen to trade talk this week, real tangible offers, and they may still try to get a first out of someone somewhere, but it does appear one Western Conference team, multiple picks. And what the Jazz are after is not necessarily collecting draft assets and tanking, although they would go that way if they determine that that's sort of their best path, because what they want to be good in the near term. They want someone that can help them be good like next year, because they don't want to go through like a multi-cycle terrible rebuild. They want to kind of say, hey, we skipped a couple steps by getting Lauri Markkanen, Colin Sexton, and how good Walker Kessler is. Let's get back up to where we think we can be, because we're going to have our own picks, and we got a glut of other picks from Minnesota, and we're going to make it happen. A glut of other picks from Cleveland as well. Like they don't, according to Jones's reporting, is like they don't have incentive to totally tear it down, but they would be willing to get rid of some veterans to acquire some future assets. And that gets to the future assets include the reporting from Michael Scotto of Hoops Hype that said that Nasir Little was a name to monitor that could be likely involved in a trade for Jarred Vanderbilt. In addition, Matt Moore, who hosts the Locked On Nuggets podcast and is one of the hosts of Locked On NBA right here on this network and writes for Action News Network, wrote that there was a, quote, high likelihood, according to one league source, that Jarred Vanderbilt winds up with the Blazers. All of that seems to be pointing to a couple things, and let's get back to the thing I got wrong. On a podcast last week, I said that many of you have sent me the trade that Justice Winslow and a couple second-round picks in exchange for Jarred Vanderbilt, and I said that's way too low. And it turns out, reading this reporting now, this like sourced reporting out here from a variety of sources, that doesn't seem like that far off. Y'all were right, I was wrong. My idea in that trade was that the Jazz would want more from the Blazers in exchange, and that they would probably ask for Josh Hart, because then they could facilitate either a third team to get involved or find another landing spot for Hart at the deadline, and would allow them to get something that's more equivalent to a first round pick, because Hart probably has in general a little more value because of his he's got a little more offensive juice to him than Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt's really limited on offense. He's bigger and longer, and probably, like, I don't know if he's even a better rebounder, but he's bigger and longer, and length matters, and he can guard a couple other spots because of that length. But Hart is probably, for my money, Hart's just a better basketball player. But so my idea was that they would expand the trade. They would include Josh Hart. That would allow the Jazz to facilitate and get more assets in return. And it sounds like the asking price, which was very clearly from the reporting that was public out there, was at least a first-round pick, has really diminished. That's Matt Moore indicated as much in his report, citing Tony Jones's reporting that the first round pick might not be out there for Jarred Vanderbilt. So it might end up being a lot cheaper. A lot cheaper might end up looking something like Keon Johnson, Justice Winslow, and multiple second round picks, which is a trade that so many of you sent me, and I emailed so many of you back and said, hey, don't think it's enough. Hey, don't think it's enough. Guess who was wrong? Your boy. That's right. Got it wrong in the basement, got it wrong in the email, got it wrong on the podcast, got it wrong in the video feed, everywhere it seems like I was wrong about this. I don't think it's like set in stone that that's going to be the asking price. Certainly that can, it might change. I might end up being closer to correct, but like when I end up wrong on deadline day, when this trade goes down on Thursday and I end up wrong, because it really sounds like it's leaning in that direction, I want to be out in front and say, yeah, y'all were right. You all were right. Sure. It happens. I try to be honest about like my logical thinking and all this and that when I'm talking about trades and talking about transactions. And when I get stuff wrong based on the reporting that's out there, I am happy to eat crow. It's one of the benefits of doing this show. So I think, like, in general, I think diving into what Vanderbilt brings is not something I'm going to do now in this show. It's something I will do when he is officially traded, when it happens, because it really does seem like we're heading that way. Then we'll dive deep. Just like the sort of Cliff Notes version is, on offense, he's a 5. Probably because even though he shot really well in the games against the Blazers, he's not that. And on defense, I thought he was excellent in Minnesota, like all defense good. He hasn't been that for the Jazz. In fact, they have closed games preferring to have Markkanen and Kessler on the court because of what Kessler brings, and because Markkanen is kind of good enough. They've even left Jordan Clarkson in late in games. I watched a ton of Jazz games this year. They've left Clarkson in games because, like, Vando is not their guy, not that defensive ace guy that they ask him to be. I don't think he's been very good on defense this year for the Jazz. He was really good last year for the Timberwolves. It's somewhere in there. But on defense, he can guard a whole bunch of different positions in theory. Although he might have taken a step back on offense, he's a center. The other thing, I want to just touch on this in general. I do think more so than with Joe Cronin in charge, it seems like the Blazers' moves have been a little more telegraphed. It seems like we've seen, like, the CJ McCollum trade. It was like, okay, he's going to get traded. It's just when. And for the most part, I feel like we have heard rumblings of what happens, and then something akin to that happens. Hey, CJ's linked to the New Orleans Pelicans. I did like 3 podcasts about it before the trade went down with Jake Madison over at Locked On Pelicans. Like, it's I would say in general, with Cronin in charge, and that just might be like the way. It might be just like the function of a newer regime, is that we seem to, when this stuff gets out, it seems to be real faster. So that's why I'm like kind of joking, like future Blazer Jarred Vanderbilt, because for the most part over 2 trade deadlines, this stuff has been out there publicly, and it has gotten out quicker and louder than it did under the previous regime. So like why I'm being a little more firm with the language here is because from what we've seen the previous deadline, yeah, this stuff is real. This stuff is real. The other thing is, like, it's weird to get traded in the NBA. I keep thinking about being Josh Hart and just like knowing that you're probably going to be on another team and you're going to have to move, and you're going to have to move your family, and your wife is pregnant, and all of the weird things about being a human that gets traded and forced to take a new job. And maybe I'll talk about this more on deadline day, but I cannot stop considering how bizarre it must be to be Yusuf Nurkic with a calf injury, not knowing what your future holds, for being Jarred Vanderbilt, knowing that, Jarred Vanderbilt sat out the game tonight with back spasms for the Jazz, sitting on the bench, wearing a really cool black and gold fit. I watched the little bit of Jazz game before the Blazers game started. Knowing that you are headed somewhere else. It is truly a bizarre week for all the people involved. And just a reminder, it's people involved. Okay, speaking of people involved, Kyrie Irving, he plays for the Dallas Mavericks. That trade was made official today. I think it has some implications for the Blazers in general, and also maybe some longer term implications for the Blazers that could, in my eyes, impact the way that they should approach this trade deadline. Let's talk about that to close the show. But first, let me tell you that today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. Daily fantasy made easy. I play PrizePicks on the app, but you can also play it on PrizePicks.com. You can play a whole bunch of different sports. You can play NFL. You can play NHL. I personally play the NBA. When you're playing with the NBA, you are choosing between 2 and 6 players for your entry, and you're picking above or below the lines set by PrizePicks. So it's things like points, rebounds, assists, blocks, and steals. PrizePicks sets the lines. You pick over or under those lines, and it's just you versus the projections. No field, no experts, no sharks, no nothing. PrizePicks says the numbers, you say above or below those numbers, and then you win your money, and you can get it quickly with safe and fast withdrawals. And right now, first-time users, when you sign up for PrizePicks on the app or at PrizePicks.com and put in the promo code LOCKEDON, they'll give you a 100% deposit match up to $100. That means you put in $100, match you $100. Put in $50, they match you $50. So don't wait. Go take advantage today. Use that promo code LOCKEDON when you sign up for PrizePicks. That's PrizePicks Daily Fantasy made easy. Still a pass first point guard. Still Mike Richmond. You are still listening to Locked On Blazers. Kyrie Irving is a Dallas Maverick. Weird. First instinct on that is weird. As far as like, go listen to Locked On Mavs. Nick and Isaac do just a great job. It's a wonderful podcast. Even if you're not a Mavs fan, it's a wonderful podcast. They've broken down from every angle. They're really good. In fact, they predicted this exact trade, and my man Nick said that he didn't want it to go down prior to the trade happening. Dorian Finney-Smith and Spencer Dinwiddie headed to the Brooklyn Nets. In general, I think the Mavs are going to be better on offense. They're already a good offensive team because Luka's so damn good, but having Kyrie Irving be the guy who runs the bench units and not Spencer Dinwiddie seems like a pretty good upgrade. Obviously, Kyrie Irving has been unavailable a lot of his career for a variety of reasons, the least of which are physical health problems that have limited his participation in many a season, even without all the Kyrie stuff. Dude's had some health issues, whatever. I think they're going to be fine. They have some defensive issues. They got back Markieff Morris in the trade. So obviously he'll help. But I think in general, the Mavs are going to be worse on defense, but they might be even better on offense. We'll see. I think it has more implications in the playoffs than the regular season. I think they could climb up to like third in the West because they might just roll teams by being so overwhelmingly good offensively on many nights. One thing of note for the Mavericks, they have previously been linked to Jarred Vanderbilt, and when they traded with the Brooklyn Nets, they only gave up a 2029 first rounder, which means they still have first round picks available to trade in 2025 and 2027. Conceivably, there also has been reported that they're also open to and maybe likely to trade Christian Wood. They could be a team that kind of mucks things up for the Jarred Vanderbilt market because they could use him. They could use a big wing defender after losing Dorian Finney-Smith. That seems real. Should they trade a first-round pick in 2025 for Jarred Vanderbilt? Probably not. If the only other offer is like a couple seconds and Nasir Little from the Trailblazers, but you know what? Maybe they will. I think it's worth, they, according to Matt Moore of Locked On NBA and Action News Network, Matt reported that they had discussed a Dorian Finney-Smith, Jarred Vanderbilt trade, and the Mavs kind of balked at that and ended up getting Kyrie Irving for Dorian Finney-Smith. So maybe they revisit it. I think that's a thing to keep an eye on and could have an impact on the Blazers trade market. But in general, it does sound like the Vanderbilt trade is the market for Vanderbilt has quieted a whole bunch. The Jazz did not get the sexy haul they were hoping for, or haven't received that offer, and it might be going to the Blazers on the cheap. That's good news. That's one part of the Kyrie trade. The other part is Kevin freaking Durant. As soon as the Kyrie Irving has requested a trade, and it came out from a variety of people, Kyrie Irving's requested a trade from Trania and from Haynes and from Adrian Wojnarowski, from Stein, from all of the newsbreakers and brokers in the league. The next speculation from everybody, not even plugged in people, just like the lay folk like you and I, were like, so is KD going to leave? And is KD going to leave February 8th? Or is he going to say, okay, I don't want to deal with that. I don't want to move during the season. I'm good enough to probably get us to, at least the second round of the Eastern Conference playoffs on my own. And then we're going to play Boston or Milwaukee, and we're just not going to be good enough, and we're going to lose. And then in the summertime, I too will consider moving out of Brooklyn to another metropolis. That is the obvious speculation. And because of that, at least somewhat realistic trade scenario, this is why the Blazers aren't going to unprotect their pick. They're not going to go all in to get OG Anunoby or whatever. I think that's kind of dead or whatever. Like, that's what I'm saying is, like, the Blazers are armed if they get their picks back, if they make the playoffs and convey that pick to the Bulls and they get their future picks, to have a legitimately good package to trade for Kevin Durant, which is why it always made more sense for them to wait and go all in the summertime for exactly this type of scenario. I've mentioned that I kind of want them to be irresponsible with their picks, but mostly I want them to be irresponsible with their picks when the opportunity arises. Kevin Durant arises and you can trade a cajillion future first round picks and Anthony Simonson, Shaedon Sharpe to get one of the 15 best players of all time, and say, hey, Damian Lillard, do you want an all-NBA MVP type running mate? The first time Damian Lillard would ever have it even be close to reasonable in the post-LaMarcus era to consider that he was the second best player on the team, 150 million%. Go for it. I'm in favor of them striking out swinging as opposed to looking. The Durant thing's a little far-fetched. He kind of been eyeing Phoenix, and it's reported that Phoenix is kind of star hunting and again, like keeping their powder dry, right? And like not getting rid of Ayton, holding on to DeAndre Ayton, re-signing him, holding on to Jay Crowder, and like all of these things, like specifically to when this type of trade comes up for them also to be the team that pursues it. So it's not like the Blazers are going to be only suitors for Kevin Durant. If he's truly on the market, he's, again, like I said, one of probably the 15 best players to ever play basketball. At least NBA players. So like it is the Blazers should approach this deadline without, unless something wild comes up, you kind of just say, hey, we'll do it in the summer because in the summer, this type of stuff can come up. It's why you wait. It's why you kind of like, I'm in favor of them taking a probably big and somewhat irresponsible swing in terms of like the holistic future organic team building, particularly in a market like Portland, because again, I'm just like in favor of that. It's more fun to me, but you can't do it without that opportunity arising, and you have to be prepared with all of your ammo when it arises. And if Kevin Durant ends up saying like, man, Kyrie left, I'm cool on it too, get me out of here. He requested a trade last summer. If he does it again this summer, that's why you stay in the game. That's why you stay prepared. So I think a big fallout of the Kyrie Irving trade is the Blazers. The front office preached patience in the fall when on media day, heading into the season. There's a chance that their patience is specifically rewarded by the situation that has again arisen in Brooklyn less than a year later. So that's your fallout. Blazers play some home games that they need to win if they're going to be a playoff team heading into the All-Star break, starting with Golden State on Wednesday night. Guess what? We'll cover the show. We'll cover that in the show. I'm going to do like a mini mailbag and rumor roundup, and then for you are listening to Tuesday's show, Wednesday show heading into that game against the Warriors, we'll do a mini mailbag trade rumor roundup. Because that'll be the night before. There's going to be some action night before the trade deadline. Obviously, we've got the trade deadline Thursday. It's a really fun week. Come back for more. We will talk about trades, and I will be wrong guessing about what the packages will be. But I'll try to walk you through my logic, and we'll have a whole bunch of fun. Future Trailblazers Jarred Vanderbilt and Kevin Durant. See him soon. I'll see you soon. I'll talk to you soon, rather. I appreciate you listening.